Or do you take a seat?
Well, all right.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna steal this chair since we're starting. Nobody else coming in? Can I steal this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll sit in the back.
Good afternoon, everyone. Joining Coach Quinn today, he's senior offensive guard Andre Davis. Andre helped pave the way for 575 yards of offense last week and 222 yards career high rushing for Anthony Taylor. As they both get ready for Bowling Green, second MAC game this weekend, first road contest in MAC play on Saturday. So with that, Coach, why don't you open up with a statement and we'll take questions.
Very good, John. Thank you, and we appreciate you being here. I felt the homecoming crowd. We're close to 21,000 in that stadium. They've done a great job. Our fans, we're 10-1 over the last 11 games, which is spread out over 3 seasons, and a lot of that is credited to the energy and excitement that our fans bring into that stadium. We appreciate that. It was an important victory over Miami, Ohio, as we continue to build our football team. Defensively, we're working extremely hard on eliminating the big plays. I think we could talk a little bit about that if you'd like, but you know, those kids went out there and they battled. You know, and the one thing that I felt really good about is the play of our senior corner, Courtney Lester. Right now, Courtney is, I think, 5 plays, pass defended plays from setting a new UB record. He's at 34 pass defended plays, and 39 is the record. They went after him. Their best receiver was held to only 4 catches in the game, no touchdowns, which I thought Courtney did a great job stepping up for us. You know, we held the quarterback to 32% completion, and then really that one long run really added to their total for the day. But if you take away that 61-yard run, we held them to 72 yards. We're working on those things, but I really felt good about the way our defense stepped up in the fourth quarter on those last 3 drives. You know, which is a great sign to see. Offensively, we started fast and finished strong. You know, putting 2 quick scores on the board really gave us a good, good lift. We certainly didn't sustain that over the next few drives, but I was really pleased with the way they closed out the game. The last 4 drives were 3 touchdowns and 1 field goal, and that helped us secure that win. It was the first time we made all 8 goals. But the big highlight of the day was, Anthony Taylor. He was the #1 leading rusher in the country this past weekend with his total yardage over the guy from Nebraska. So, very proud of his work, and certainly sitting next to me is Andre Davis, who's our workhorse in our offense. He's got the most plays. I think he's been the leader over the last few years. Not just as an offensive line, but also on special teams. He also leads us in helmet sticker awards. So, his play is really representative of what we want from an offensive standpoint. It's great to see Jacob Martinez step up. Joe, was outstanding, and it was good just to see those guys really hitting their stride. Special teams, a couple things we got to work on, again, is our punt returners, coming up big and catching the ball in critical moments. There was one moment in that game that should have never touched the ground, just misjudged it, and we're going to continue to put the best guys out there to help us secure those possessions. So with that, every game, as you know, brings on a new and exciting challenge. We go on the road against Bowling Green. The mindset is to play great defense, be explosive in our playmaking and special teams, run the ball, protect our quarterback, and do it on the road. And that's a mark of a good football team, and it's a perfect time for us to do this. So with that, we'll open up to any questions you may have.
All right, Jeff, why don't you just start out Bowling Green? When we start with their quarterback, obviously they lost their veteran, but the guy they got in is throwing the ball around. Just what characteristics stand out about their offense?
Their receivers. They've got some nice their speed is very evident on film. They go up and they catch the ball. They're an up-tempo offense, so I think it fits to what they've tried to accomplish with this new coaching staff, is really push the tempo, get a lot of plays, and put a lot of yardage and points on the board. I mean, they're putting some points on the board. They're over 500 yards a game. When you really look at these two offenses, they're very comparable in a lot of respect. I think when I talk about defense, that's probably the biggest focus. I'm sure they're discussing it just as equally as we are. But they're very similar to their structure and schemes of what we've seen against Baylor. But I think it's clear they want to throw the ball, and when they get closer to the goal line, they want to run the ball a little bit more. So it's going to be a great challenge for our defense to defend their offense.
The last 2 years, it has been their defense that has been as big a part of them beating you as anything. Is it odd for you to watch film of a Bowling Green team that is struggling and giving up as many yards and points as they are now based on what it's been the last couple of years?
Well, they've been really solid. You're absolutely right. Their defense has been the reason why they've been so successful, and certainly they're now having to outscore opposing offenses. You look at last week. What an incredible game to watch. When you think about, if you love those kind of games, then, that was the kind of game you want to watch. What we want to do is control the line of scrimmage and certainly, make sure that we run the ball effectively. And when I see their defense giving up those kind of yards, I'm sure, Dino is not as happy with that kind of production. But we got to be ready for their very best. We know these games, just put all that aside, Paul, and I think that's a big part of how I want to prepare this team each and every week is forget the records, forget the stats, forget all that. Because they're going to bring their very best, and we've got to bring our very best, and the two matched up, it's going to be a great battle on that field Saturday.
So their offense, past Bowling Green tapes, it's much different. Obviously they're running their Eastern Illinois offense, so it's a different identity than they've had on offense.
Well, they're obviously they're moving the ball a little differently. In terms of their up tempo. Though previous staff they had moments where they wanted to kick it up into higher gear, but that's what happens when you get a coaching change. But we've got nothing but respect for this staff. Coach Babers has done a great job in his previous places he's coached. Some of our coaches know him, and we certainly are very familiar with the personnel and the program that they have there, and they're the defending conference champs. As simple as that. That's from last year, but this is a new year, and we certainly look forward to the challenge.
Andre, how much does last year's game kind of motivate you guys as players? Obviously, they beat you guys. They took away your chance to go to the MAC championship game. Do you guys think about that at all, the guys who were here last year? Does that give you a little bit of extra
yes,
motivation?
definitely. All summer, that's where our motivation was, because when BG beat us, they took away our title shot, and that's what we want this year. We want to win the MAC championship, but we're taking it 1 week at a time, starting with BG.
Andre, they have been one of the few teams that have not allowed you guys to do what you generally do on offense. You look back and how much does that sort of bug you? And then you look back and see, why was it? Why hasn't Joe thrown the only two teams he's not thrown a touchdown pass against at Bowling Green?
Well, the past previous years, their defense was great. No denying that fact. But it hurts to think that, but we have to do better this week in order to win.
Coach, you mentioned defensive big plays. Is it a case of just continuing to work, or what do you think? What is your focus in trying to limit that?
Well, I think it's always about 11 guys lining up correctly, getting the right communication, getting the signal from Coach Tepp, and then obviously executing, and those are things. It's very important that we line up correctly and that we make the right we make the right calls and the right checks if those situations warrant themselves, and then being able to execute. One guy out of a gap, obviously that's what happened in that big 61-yard run. And certainly with some of their throws down the field, they made some plays. We were in some position to make those plays, but it's going to be a battle, one play at a time. And certainly I've got a lot of faith in our defensive coaching staff, and our coaches work extremely hard. Our players are very conscientious. They certainly understand how important it is. They take a lot of pride in playing great defense, and we're going to continue to challenge them, encourage them to do that. And we have to be able to measure up, because let's face it, this is a week where the best defensive effort is probably going to provide that offense or that team the kind of feeling that you want to feel after this weekend.
So the 60-yard run, it wasn't a pre-snap alignment mistake. It was a gap control play.
Right, exactly. You know, those moments, you know, that one split-second moment, we were just one gap, you know, short in terms of how we played it.
Coach, you kind of touched on it when talking about Jacob Martinez, but how different is this offense for Joe this year? Since he has so many different guys to throw the ball to. Last year, it was all about the 2 senior receivers. Now, you know, if they take away Ron, they take away Devin, he could go to Jacob underneath. Can you just kind of talk about how different it is for Joe now that he has he can throw the ball to so many different guys compared to just forcing it to 2?
I think you answered that question. You know, he's got more weapons, he's got more options to go to, so you know he's able to see the sideline to the sideline. People are gonna have to defend us on both sides. If they're gonna take away, you know, some aspect of our formation, our personnel, he's got other options to go to. And I think the other thing is just the way these the big fellas up front continue to protect them. You know, it's a veteran group. When you think about 3 seniors on the offensive line and 2 juniors, and Joe's a junior and Anthony's a junior, you know, Willoughby's a junior, you know, you look at the experience. These guys have, they've witnessed other guys that have really showed the way, and now that's their opportunity. But, you know, he's more poised. Joe Licata's more poised. He's very composed. He's got great faith and belief that all of his receivers are going to be where they're supposed to be. Marty's done a great job with that receiving core. He's moved over from tight ends to receivers. As I mentioned, Coach Wood is now my offensive coordinator, but he's also my quarterback coach. So I think those things are all coming closer and closer together, and that's given us more opportunity to move the chains and put us in scoring position.
Any injury updates?
Just the same, Jordan. You know, we're not going to be able to. We're not going to activate him yet. We'll wait another week to see how he responds. But you know, we're going to eventually get him back, and hopefully sooner than later.
Coach, it can't hurt to have, for Joe's sake, for Anthony to be doing what he's doing this year, too. That's got to help him out tremendously.
Well, I take a lot of pride in that, and I think Anthony, you know, when you sit behind Bo for a number of years and watch, you know, the all-time leading rusher in the history of our football program, Anthony has a lot of pride, and he wants to have that those same kind of results. But he knows he has to lean very heavily on the big guys, you know, not just the O-line, but the tight ends, the fullbacks. When you watch those guys, I mean, they're you know, they're really stepping up, which is helping Anthony, which in return is helping Joe, you know, and that just makes how, you know, a great offense clicks. And, you know, we feel very good about that being, you know, our formula for success, you know. Learn how to play great defense, continue to strive on that, be exposed to special teams, run the ball, you know, and Anthony's been doing a great job with Joe, and then protect Joe. That's going to be the key.
Andre, how would you describe Anthony's running style?
Oh, it's very similar to Bo. You sit behind someone that long, you're gonna pick up his tendencies. He runs the ball hard. It's all every play, every down, he's running as hard as he can.
What kind of pride do you take when you look at those numbers? And you mentioned he was the top runner in the country this week. I mean, what kind of, as a unit, do you take in that?
Oh, as a unit, that's all on us, because without the offensive line, there's no 222 yards rushing the game. So without the offensive line producing, Ant's not going to produce. So when we produce, he produces.
Was it something specific the last 2 weeks that you guys succeeded in that you can continue to repeat through the rest of the season that helped them get so many yards?
Week in, week out, we make a great game plan and we execute it to perfection. That's what the results you're going to get.
Can you describe what it takes to be effective both in pass blocking and run blocking? Because you guys are doing pretty well in both of those categories.
You can't rely strictly on one or the other. You have to execute both well. So when we don't just run the ball all day, we can pass the ball too. So when we do both at the same time, it's great on us.
How many helmet stickers do you have?
I have no idea.
He's got the most.
How do you
it's
get
up in the 20s.
Okay. And
So far this year.
And what are the ways you get a helmet sticker?
You get 2 for a MAC win, 1 for a non-conference win, and then your position coach will give you a certain number based on how well you perform, and then the special teams coach will give you 1 or 2 depending on how you perform.
So the O-line coach, what are some of the things? Is there finishing plays, or is it pancake block? You know, do you count certain types of blocks?
See, they really don't tell us how it works. We just come to our helmets on Monday and see how many we have.
Andre, similar question to what I asked Coach. You get used to seeing opponents that play a style, and you 2-3 years in a row, you kind of get used to what they do. How much different is it looking at Bowling Green defensively than it has been the last 2 years?
It's different. They still have some good defensive linemen. They come off the ball hard. Linebackers will hit you in the hole. I mean, the structures may be different, but the attitude is still the same.
Coach, can you talk about just going on the road? You only had one road game so far this year, so just talk about that challenge since you've been at home for 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's been an emphasis, and as we continue through the week, we'll talk a little bit more about, the importance of that. I think anytime you want to measure yourself to becoming a great football team, you have to win on the road. And we've been able to show that mentality at home. We got to duplicate that this Saturday. And, certainly we didn't fare out too well on the first one, where I feel our kids are, they're going to be energized. They learned from that experience, and now it's just an opportunity for them to get there and, and just block out all the external factors. You got to take a bus trip. Well, guess what? That's just the way things work in this business. And then you got to be able to line up and go at it. It's their homecoming, I understand, and then it's their home game, and certainly there's going to be a lot of energy in that stadium. So it's going to be a great matchup. I feel good about where our kids are mentally, with great confidence. Now they've got to go and complete the mission on the road this Saturday.
Jeff, Kirill Threets has been a player who has started to get more playing time, started to make more plays that have started to show up. A guy who didn't play much, if at all, last year on the special teams. What can you sort of tell us about him and how he's emerged as more of a viable player for you?
Well, physically, he has a lot of talent, Paul, and Kirill Threets has really stepped up. Just his passion for the game. He's been blessed with some gifts. He's got good size. I mean, he came around the edge on that one and sacked quarterback. I mean, he had been working on that move, for quite some time. And then he was placed in that position, and Lou's done a tremendous job putting him in the right place at the right time, and now he's taking advantage of that. So, as he gains more and more experience at this level, competing against the competition he faces, I think you're going to see a lot more of him. And he's helping us in special teams too. So, he's been a big plus, and I think everyone's excited about, where he is and how much better he can become as time progresses and he gains more confidence.
Jeff, you mentioned Courtney Lester and his passes defended or deflected or whatever the stat is. It seemed like they were your secondary was really prepared for those deep passes down the sidelines last week. Was it preparation that was so successful, and what can you carry over to this week?
Well, I think Eric Lewis, my secondary coach, did a great job breaking down their offense, along with the entire defensive staff. And then what we did is we challenged Courtney to put them into the boundary where their number one receiver was. We knew that that's where their quarterback was going to go. And Courtney knew that early on. They had a couple throws and completions that I think Courtney, just settled down. And just continued to do what I think he does best, and that's just being a complete competitor. We're going to need that same kind of play. When you look at Courtney's overall development, it's been impressive, and he takes a lot of pride in it. And when you got guys out there who have talent, take a lot of pride, he's poised and composed, and he's confident, he's playing 4 quarters, you're going to probably come out on the better end of that one, and that's what I saw out of him Saturday, and we'll need that same type of effort. The difference is they've got 4 really good receivers that are going to, challenge our back end this Saturday.
Jeff, this game against Bowling Green the last couple of years has been the last game of the season, sort of an ending, an exclamation point to your year. Do you like having it early now, having sort of a kind of a where you're at test here early?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because it has been one of those games where it's been placed right at the end of the season, and now it's the second game of the MAC conference. And, anytime you get a chance to compete against a program that has, fared out very well over the last few years, and we have not against them. We are as excited about playing this game regardless if it's first game or the last game or any game in between. I think all of us as a program recognize, how important it is to have a great week and get measured up. So, it's interesting just to be able to be in this position. We feel very fortunate that we've got guys that understand and that are mature and that'll go to work all week. And regardless of when you play these games, you're going to have to deliver your very best and earn a road victory. It's going to be exciting to see that for 4 quarters.
What do you think about the general trend in the conference-wide of just so many passing yards? I mean, 589 passing yards. I mean, every week, Toledo, 42 points. I mean, then you think the conference needs to set up like a self-help consultation line for
Where's
defensive backs or
defense,
something?
right? Where's defense? I mean, I
Or
don't
you
know.
think it's just sort of like the way the game has gone? What do you
Well, I think offenses certainly have got a distinct edge, on defenses. I'm not just talking about this year at this time. We're talking about, in previous. So, we're constantly, with our defensive staff and Lou and I, and talking about what we need to do to, to be able to defend offenses that are up tempo like this, that have the skill guys. It's still about the talent too, but offenses certainly have got an edge on the defense. And, what we see is, it's exciting for the fans. From a defensive standpoint, it'll drive you crazy. Because, there's nothing better than seeing a great defense stepping up and keeping people out of the end zone. And, and that's really what we want to take a tremendous amount of pride in. We know we can move the ball. It'll be exciting to see how well our defense measures up against this type of offense, because we've already seen a similar offense, a couple weeks ago that we're going to face, very similar to what we're going to face this Saturday. So, there's good talent. And I think what's happening is there's guys that really know how to exploit defensive coverages and schemes, and and obviously we've got to continue finding answers and getting our personnel in the right place and competing when the ball's in the air.
Coach, and then off of that, you guys have only had one game where you've been under 35 points. You've had pretty good offenses during your time here with some quality players on the outside and especially on the offensive line. Where does this offense rank, I guess, with some of the ones you've had here, and I guess coaching in general? Where does this offense, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, strong offensive line, where does this rank?
I think we have more depth, all around, from our skill position, our big skill position. What I mean by skill, wide receivers, big skill tight ends, obviously running backs. But the guy who makes it go is the quarterback. Let's face it. You got a great quarterback, and we certainly are very blessed to have Joe playing the way he is. But it's the big guys up front. I've worked extremely hard. That group and that unit has taken some time, and when you have those big guys be able to run the ball and protect the quarterback, it makes life a lot easier for those guys. But we have more depth. We're more familiar. We're in, for me, it's year 5, but for Coach Wood, it's year 4. There's more continuity. These guys understand what the expectations are. They've taken more pride and more ownership. They've invested more into what we're trying to do, and they take a lot of pride. But when these guys decide to go, you watch our offense, it's impressive. And that's what I saw. We came out of the gates quickly, and then there was a couple drives in there, we weren't able to produce enough. Maybe there was a penalty here or there. Maybe something didn't quite fall into place. But then at the end there, you saw how effective this unit can be. And we're going to need that sustained at that high level for 4 quarters, because that's what I see from Bowling Green's offense. They're going to be pushing the envelope. They're running 100-plus plays in the game. So, we've got to do a good job managing the game from a coach's standpoint. But I like where our offense is, and I think it can be as good as any that I've seen. And they've already hit the second most total yards in one game, this past Saturday. So we can be explosive, and we're going to certainly lean on our kids to be able to do that.
To follow up on Mark's question, Jeff, is there a sense amongst the coaching staffs in the conference that maybe the more talented players are put on offense or wind up on offense? The guy that's sitting next to you started on defense and winds up on offense. Or do you just say, well, we've got to compete with the rest of the offenses, so that fast guy, we're going to make him a wide receiver instead of a defensive back?
Well, it's interesting because when you look at the receivers, you're looking for a 6'3", 6'4" receiver. There's not many 6'3", 6'4" DBs out there to match that height. And then when you look at the speed, you certainly can find them in the 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'10", secondary guys. So they may have a little bit more height, but the speed matchups should not be much different. You should have matched up, without issue, because we're not looking for anything, above a 4.6, when we're looking for guys that can run and jump and change direction. So they may have a little bit of an advantage there. But the quarterbacks today, they're so well coached. They're well trained. They have a better understanding of different coverages and where the ball goes, and your space and defense is out. Let's face it, they're creating space. Defense run or constrict space. and there's constantly that battle going on all the time. So, I feel like right now it's not necessarily you're looking for better players on offense than defense. You're looking for best players on both sides. But there has been a little bit of an advantage from a wide receiver standpoint just because of the height.
Anything else? All right, Coach, now
Thank
we're
you.
up to one-on-ones. Good job.